Well, FM, this is the Wally Show, and this is really cool. We have Gabe Lyons on with us, and he is the guy behind the Q Conference, which is a place for like church and industry leaders and believers to find ways to navigate the complexity of our changing society. And that's what we're talking about today in the wake of the election, because a lot of times this is very divisive in our culture, and people don't necessarily know how to handle it well. And you've come up with a way that I think could be ingenious for having a conversation about a really charged subject.
Yeah, we've had hundreds of people responding this week in the wake of an election, knowing that people are feeling divided, to say, what if we started to gather people in our homes and hosted dinner and invited friends, people from work, maybe our neighbors, so maybe some family members who you don't get along with, and said, let's have a constructive conversation about how do we move forward and solve problems together, even when there's some of this political division. And so we've created something called Q Dinners, and we have over 900 people now that have signed up to host dinner the week of November 12th, so we can be proactive and engage this conversation. I think at a moment when people are looking for answers, they've kind of done their political thing. They voted, but
Right.
they realize, they walk away and go, well, I don't know that really fixed anything.
Well, it didn't, honestly. I mean, like a few days after, you're still going to have conversations that you're going to have to continue to work through. Now, did you choose like the week of the 12th instead of like Thanksgiving because people were already going to be gathered and already fighting?
Yes. We said, let's create 2 weeks on our social calendar for fighting to happen in our home.
Yeah, genius. You're on the cutting edge of connection right there,
Yeah.
Gabe.
This is like prep for Thanksgiving.
So Gabe has invited us all to dinner, basically, just not at his house. So how do you decide your guest list? Because the idea is to have like 6 or so people, right?
6 or more.
Okay.
We think we need at least 6 to have a productive conversation.
Okay.
And yeah, we have some people that are having 25 people over for dinner, but basically we're telling people to think about who are people they have a little bit of a relationship with, so not total strangers, but that also care about thinking about ways they can solve problems together. And we're setting up the conversation that night. We have 3 questions for them to discuss specifically around politics and what role politics should play in our lives as we think about being good neighbors. And I think it's going to challenge some people, and I think people will be challenged to just sit and have to listen to some opinions from people on the left, on the right, those who don't care anymore. And I think that's going to create an interesting dialogue they can move forward from.
Now, there's a lot of times with our workplaces and stuff where we don't know where a coworker might stand on an issue. Would you still say to invite that person, even if it is terrifying territory? We don't know where they stand on faith, where they stand on politics.
Sure. Well, absolutely, because the research from Pew Research recently was showing that like 14% of Americans are on the extreme ends of a lot of these issues. They post a lot. They're the most vocal, but 67% of Americans are exhausted. And I think a lot of people feel that. And so don't be afraid of the person who's passionate about their point of view. That's going to make a great dinner. The goal of dinner is not to convince everybody to your point of view.
Right.
The goal is to sit and put yourself in a space where you actually are going to listen to some things that are different from what you normally think, and realize that that doesn't have to separate you relationally. We're providing a 9-minute talk for those who want to play that, to set up the night, to set up the conversation around politics. And then we're giving you 3 questions to discuss how you as a group respond to thinking about this role of politics in your daily life.
It's good, too, that you're doing that, like you're giving it some focus, because that definitely helps, because sometimes things can, turn into an argument, and politics has a way of doing that. Religion and politics.
You're not supposed to have dinner around religion and politics.
Right.
We're not supposed to talk about it. And we actually emphasize that and say that's why we're doing it, because we don't talk about it, we no longer know how to talk with people who have differing opinions, and we need to get better at that.
Now, you would advocate, I would imagine, too, for not just filling the room with people that agree with you.
That's right.
Like, because what's the point in that? We all just go, yep,
Yeah, I think hearing from some people, and you don't always know what people think, but when you create an environment, even those you might think you really agree with, when you create space to say, hey, can we have a real dialogue about some of the bigger issues here? And especially as Christians, what role should politics be playing in our life or in our vision of how society actually gets healing, gets actually freedom from some of the things we see people oppressed from? That can create some really great dialogue for even Christians. If you have non-Christians that are your friends, your coworkers, what a great way for you to be hospitable, serve dinner, invite them over and say, let's have substantive conversation, not just Twitter, Facebook, social media debate. Let's just talk to one another for a change.
Because you handle people differently when you're, A, face-to-face with them, and B, sharing food with them. Like it's a different environment. It's a little bit more, it takes away a few of the other barriers and disarms people a little bit. Is your lead-off question for the Q dinners, is it just Trump? Question mark.
Yeah.
Fight.
Because you're going to get, it's polarizing. You're going to get people on both sides that have an opinion.
Well, that's right. And it seems like this election, that was the big idea, right? Is how do you feel about Trump? I think the way we're leading this off is we're asking people to describe what role they think politics should be playing in solving problems in our country. Is that the main way we solve problems? And I think historically, one of the things we talk about a lot at Q is that actually politics lots of times is downstream from the broader culture, and you actually don't just change things through politics. Largely, it reflects what the culture's already thinking about. So if we're really divided right now because of politics, likely we were pretty divided before. It's just raising to the surface, and now we get to deal with some things that maybe we hadn't dealt with and we'd swept under the rug for a while.
I always feel smarter when Gabe's been here for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like the best. I appreciate you coming in and talking about Q dinner. So if you have one seat left at your Q dinner that you're hosting, one seat left, and you've got Becca or myself who are both clamoring for an invitation, who do you invite, Becca or me?
Absolutely, Becca.
There's no you didn't even hesitate.
Well, we need gender diversity at our table.
Oh, okay.
And since, you and me, two guys, we need a woman in the room to actually keep us honest, ask some tough questions, discern and intuit.
Full disclosure,
really
she also
here.
chews with her mouth closed. So I get you. I feel you. Yeah. That's a good choice. You can check it out, qdinners.com. And I recommend actually typing in qdinners.com because I just searched Q dinners and I got a whole list of barbecue joints.
Not a bad move. I mean,
no.
But maybe both.
Yeah. So, do a little, maybe some barbecue as part of your dinner with your Q dinner. And again, you can check it out, qdinners.com.